Greetings, this is Paul from Management as a Liberal Art, where we reclaim management to serve people and society. Today's topic is exploitative management practices. This video is part 2 of the 5-part series titled Immigrants Aren't the Problem, Employers Are. So we know that US workers were abandoning what used to be blue-collar jobs like manufacturing, agriculture, resulting in employers seeking immigrant and migrant labor to fill those jobs. But why did US workers abandon their jobs en masse in the first place? The evidence points to a combination of exploitative management practices that began gaining traction in the late 20th century. These practices were employed by unethical companies in pursuit of profit maximization and cost cutting, which profoundly affected wages, working conditions, and job stability across many industries. Today, we'll be pointing out the top 5 practices and addressing how they contribute to labor market dysfunction. 1. Wage suppression, padding profits by cutting paychecks. Let's start with the argument corporate makes when they hold wages down. They'll say something like, "We're in a competitive market. Prices are set by the industry. If we raise wages, we'll lose contracts, we'll lose customers, and eventually we'll lose jobs. Labor is one of the few costs we can't control. It's not our intention to be cruel, we are just being realistic." Now that logic sounds reasonable until you ask a Drucker and a MLA question. Is wage suppression actually a strategy, or is it a substitution for management? Because when an organization competes by squeezing wages, it's often admitting that it can't compete through better work, better design, better quality, better productivity, or better innovation. It's treating people as a cost to be minimalized rather than the most valuable resource to make productive. And the savings gained here aren't really free. Additional costs appear later as turnover, training expenses, quality problems, safety issues, and a general culture of low trust. Over time, wage suppression doesn't just weaken the workforce, it weakens the institution itself. Now here's where immigrants get dragged into this story, usually as the scapegoat. The real issue isn't that somebody came here looking for a better life. The issue is that some employers treat vulnerability as a business model. When workers, especially undocumented workers, have less power to report abuses, negotiate wages, or to walk away safely, they can be used as a tool to keep compensation low for everyone in that industry. That is a management and governance problem, not an immigration problem. It is a system designed to reward the exploitation of the most vulnerable people in society. A functioning society can't be built on labor markets where dignity is optional and enforcement is selective. A competent business shouldn't need to exploit people to survive. So what is the alternative? If the goal is competitiveness and affordability, we should pursue those goals through productivity and innovation, then compensate our employees fairly for their efforts. As Drucker said, to be productive, knowledge workers must be considered a capital asset. Costs need to be controlled and reduced. Assets need to be made to grow. We must redesign work, reduce waste, improve training, stabilize scheduling, build career paths, and compete on reliability and quality. Those are true management solutions. Wage suppression is not. It is just a shortcut, one that breaks the social contract the business ultimately depends on. 2. Union avoidance and busting, silencing the worker's voice. The second unethical management tactic is union avoidance, and when workers do actually organize, union busting. To be fair, management usually has a business case for why they resist unions. The most common argument is going to sound something like this. 1. We need flexibility. Unions, they argue, bring rigid rules. 2. Unions add costs we can't absorb. Higher wages, better benefits, and constraints on overtime and staffing can really hit our margins, especially in industries that really compete on price. 3. A union is a third party inside our company. Executives will say that they want a direct relationship with employees, not a formal bargaining structure they see as adversarial. 4. Unions increase the risk of disruption. Strikes, grievances, and conflict become framed as operational risk. So, managers therefore conclude we can't afford unions, we have to avoid them. As MLA practitioners, our question would be, if employees feel they need a union to be heard, What does that say about how the organization is being managed? When leadership chooses union busting as a strategy, it usually signals a deeper failure, such as a failure of trust, communication, and shared purpose. And these shortcuts backfire. This doesn't eliminate conflict, it only drives it underground. People stop raising problems early, safety warnings get ignored, quality issues get hidden, turnover rises, training costs also skyrocket. The culture becomes focused on compliance and on CYA, covering your ass, or quiet quitting, instead of on commitment and high performance. From an MLA perspective, union busting is also a social ecology issue. It teaches people that institutions only listen when forced. That's how you get cynicism, alienation, and a workforce that is disengaged, not just from the job, but from the fabric of society as a whole. Drucker's core premise is that management exists to make people productive and to preserve the institution's legitimacy in society. A company doesn't earn legitimacy by winning against its own workforce. It earns legitimacy by building a system where people can contribute, speak up, improve work, and share in the results. So what's a better way to achieve the same goals management is seeking without silencing employees? 1. Cultivate genuine employee feedback before they have to lawyer up to be heard. Create structured voice systems, regular listening sessions, team-level improvement meetings, frontline counseling, and a credible grievance process that actually resolves issues fast. 2. Compete on productivity and design, not on suppressing employee benefits. If your cost model depends on workers having no leverage, the model is fragile. Strong management competes through better workflows, better training, fewer defects, and higher output, not fear. 3. Share gains transparently. Use gain sharing or profit sharing tied to measurable improvements. It aligns incentives and reduces the us versus them framework that makes unions feel necessary. 4. Treat flexibility as a negotiated design problem, not a power struggle. If you truly need flexibility, design it openly. Cross-training, skill-based pay, transparent scheduling rules, and change processes that respect the human dignity of workers' lives. 5. Make trust a performance system. Drucker's world is built on the idea that knowledge and performance are voluntary. You can't manage the modern workforce through coercion. If your workforce doesn't trust you, you're gonna pay for it, either in turnover, errors, reputation damage, or long-term performance decline. When people look around and see that their wages are stagnant, their working conditions are deteriorating, and their voices are being ignored, it becomes easy to blame whoever is closest and most vulnerable. Oftentimes that means immigrants. But the deeper driver is institutional. It's the management choices that treat labor as an obstacle rather than a partner. A functioning society can't be built on workplaces where the only way to be heard is conflict. And a well-managed organization shouldn't fear the worker's voice. It should harness it. 3. Misclassification. Independent contractors as a cost-cutting strategy. Next on the list is one of the more deceptively simple tactics used in the modern corporate playbook, calling employees independent contractors. Now, again, to be fair, management usually has some sort of clean-sounding case for this. 1. We need flexibility. Demand is unpredictable. We can't carry a full-time workforce year-round. Contractors let us scale up and down. Or 2. It's about cost control. Employees come with payroll taxes, workers' compensation, overtime rules, benefits, unemployment insurance, and compliance overheads. Contractors are a simpler, cheaper line item. 3. It reduces legal risk. Executives say employment law is complex and litigation is expensive. Contractors shift responsibility and reduce exposure. 4. Workers prefer it. Some people like autonomy, setting their own schedule and writing off expenses. Corporate frames 1099 work as entrepreneurship. 5. Competition forces us. If rivals are using 1099 labor to bid lower, we either adopt their model or lose the business. So the conclusion becomes, we're not exploiting people, we're adapting. This is just the modern economy. But here's the line that most people miss. A real contractor is a business you hire for very specific results. A misclassified contractor is a person you manage like an employee while pretending they're not. For example, A plumber who sets their own price, brings their own tools, and works for multiple clients is a real contractor. A crew working for you every day on your schedule doing tasks on demand is not. From a Drucker and MLA perspective, misclassification is responsibility avoidance. It keeps the control of employment, such as rules, supervision, pace, discipline, while shifting the burden of employment onto the worker, such as insurance, downtime, instability, injury risk, tax complexity, etc. Drucker is always focused on responsibility, not on clever tactics. He argues that employers must assert concern and responsibility, including retraining and placing people when work dislocates them. A direct rejection of models built on disposable labor and not our problem thinking. Now, if the goal is flexibility and affordability, there are high integrity options, such as use contractors correctly and pay for real independence, have clear scope, deliverables, pricing, and autonomy. Build flexibility inside employment, seasonal hiring, part-time pathways, cross-training, float pools, and predictable scheduling policies. Compete on productivity, not benefit avoidance. If your advantage is offloading payroll taxes and injury risk, this is dodging responsibility, not innovation. Subcontract with accountability, not plausible deniability. Have responsible contractor standards, have pay compliance, workers' comp coverage, safety rules, and audit rights. Share risk transparently. Variable demand can be handled with variable pay tied to measurable output and quality, not shifting volatility onto the worker's survival. The bottom line is that management is supposed to convert human effort into performance without destroying the person or the community. Misclassification does the opposite. It extracts value while dodging responsibility. And when people feel their economic footing is slipping, such as no protections, no stability, and having no voice, they're going to look for a scapegoat, someone to blame for all their problems, and that's usually the nearest outsider. But the root cause is closer. It's the labor model designed by management.
Hello, Future Paul here. I'd like to first thank you so much for your time and attention. At this point, I'd like to wrap up the first 3 of the 5 exploitative management practices and take a quick commercial break. Next week, we'll return to finish up the 4th and the 5th exploitative management practice and cover those in greater detail. In the meantime, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. They always generate a wonderful discussion. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know. And thank you so much for your time and attention. I'll see you next week.